Hello, everybody, and welcome to Mouthy the podcast, where I, your host, TheaTouchton, talk about is children's media really made for children? Today, we continue in our Harry Potter series, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, aka Harry Potter 2. I've got a great guest on for you guys today. Her name is Sarah Briscoe Allen. Sarah, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, well, I have all the Harry Potter feels, first of all. I actually hated this book series when I was a kid. I didn't like the fact that it was so popular. I didn't understand why it was so popular. And this was before I had even actually read the books. It was before the movies had ever happened. Everyone I knew was talking about Harry Potter. And I was just like, why? It's a book about a kid who learns how to use magic. It's not special. I think it was second grade, she started reading the first book to us for reading time. And I was like, well, I'm not going to pay attention because Harry Potter's stupid. I paid attention, which was my mistake because I've been hooked ever since. I definitely prefer the books. I feel like there was a lot of content that was lost in the movies, which is normal. Possibly, keep all the details. But my favorite character was actually Peeves the Poltergeist. And he is not in the movies at all.
Yeah, he's in the video games. I was, immersed. I had, a Hogwarts painting, literally a whole wall. I wish I had that wall, too. I wish I could have traveled and moved with that wall. Anne hired, a really good artist. It was, a birthday present and just, painted the wall. And it was, an exact mural. It was amazing. The first thing that struck me, because it, opens on Privet Drive, as most of them do, you, really see how all of the houses on Privet Drive are the same. And then in, Hogwarts, everything is different. And I will say that I do feel like the movies did better world building than the books. The books had better character development, I feel like. As a writer, I'm crappy at scene descriptions for sure. I'm way better at dialogue, so I get it.
And see, I have a really vivid imagination, so the books were great for me because they allowed me to kind of create my own version of what the Harry Potter world was. And it was actually really nice going to see the movies when they first came out in theaters because I was this is exactly what I thought it would be. This is amazing.
Oh, that's cool. I always feel when I imagine things, they're not even close to what I pictured. I'm okay, I guess some things are cooler than I imagined. Seeing Hedwig trapped in a little cage, because in the second one, that's where they don't let Hedwig out at all, which is just terrible. Terrible bird abuse. It's so sad. It is kind of messed up that we keep birds.
I know. It's terrible. Yeah, definitely. I feel Vernon Dursley in particular, I know he was trying to suppress everything magical about Harry, but I feel in the first book, I was would you really be an animal abuser? And then in the second book, I was you'd definitely be an animal abuser. You're just a terrible person.
Yeah, well, because of most people, what he's doing is psychological, the Dursleys. It is, sociopathic. And usually one of the signs of being, a sociopath or psychopath is animal abuse. So it does go hand in hand. It is very messed up. But, yeah, so they are, basically the Dursleys are making fun of Harry that, none of his friends have written to him after the first year. This is basically the essential of, everybody signing "have a great summer" in your yearbook and never talking to you again. Mm-hmm. It's so sad. And meanwhile, Dudley's got a second bedroom. Also, I think they say schedule because they have a meeting coming, and I love the way that British people say schedule. Schedule, I can't. It's so funny that they say that to me. I don't know if that's kosher, but I'm I always want to say schedule. It took me forever to figure out that they were saying that was schedule, by the way. So then Harry has to promise Mr. Dursley that he'll be in his bedroom making noise, pretending that I don't exist, which has basically been me this entire COVID process. I don't know about you. Quietly biding my time.
Definitely. Yeah, just waiting for things to open back up.
Yeah, and then probably Dobby is one of my favorite characters, and he pops up, And Harry is like, this is not a great time to have a house elf in my bedroom. And I wonder, because Hermione starts, this is like something that got lost. It's in the books, but it's not in the movie, and I really wish it was. Like her whole like house elf campaign about how they're like slaves. And I was like, would Hermione say that Harry's comment about like, this isn't a good time to have a house elf in my bedroom, even though it's true, would she be like, this is racist? Like, would she like attack him for this?
I feel like that's such an interesting question, because Hermione defended the house elves, but she didn't do a whole lot for the mudbloods. Even, I think because she was a mudblood, she felt like she couldn't. But, like, that's where the racism and classism really comes into play in the Harry Potter world. And you actually see that a lot with, like, the Malfoys here in the second Harry Potter movie. And I feel like it's really heavy in the movies, but it's even heavier in the books, because they go into, like, back descriptions of why they feel that way and how they feel it's justified that they feel that way.
Yeah, something that I remember, it's like, this was more in the 5th book, but when they described the, like, fountain in the Ministry of Magic, and it's, like, all of these creatures supporting the wizard, and I was like, this is messed up. Like...
Yeah.
Dobby is clearly suffering the effects, because he, like, cries when he's asked to sit down, which, honestly, I'm the same way when people are nice to me. And then he has to, like, punish himself whenever he does something, like, terrible. Like, really, so much, like, self-hate, because he's so abused. It's crazy to think about. But... he basically is like, Dobby shows up and he's like, I have to protect you, Harry Potter. I can't tell you why I have to protect you. But he's like, I stole all your letters so you wouldn't go to school. So you would think you have no friends, which is like so terrible, which is so hard because Dobby is like, is such a sweetheart, but does stuff so messed up. It's almost like I feel like the equivalent of some of the stories where they have the mentally handicapped brother or friend who is well-meaning, but because they're so, like, mentally messed up, they do these, like, terrible things, which is so heavy for a children's book, right? Really, like, it's so intense. And then Dobby gets him in trouble with the Dursleys by levitating this cake, and then, like, drops it on top of the, like, Dursley's very important guest. Harry, like, the whole thing that sucks about this is, like, Harry could have lied to Dobby and been like, oh yeah, I won't go back to school. And I bet you Dobby would have believed him, and then he could have, like, saved all of himself this trouble. But, like, he doesn't lie, which I guess proves that he's, like, a good person. Or he doesn't lie always. He does lie a little bit in this movie, but we'll get into this. And then, basically, the Dursleys make this other comment that I hate so much, where they're like, oh, my nephew is disturbed. And then they, like, lock him up in the house. They lock him up with all of his magic stuff, which is kind of dumb. But I don't remember the second book so well, but there was, like, did he get a letter from the Ministry about the spell that Dobby cast?
He did. And what's really interesting about that is they explain in the books that house elf magic is different from people magic. So Dobby went out of his way to make his spell seem like wizard magic, so that Harry Potter would get a letter. Like, he went out of his way to get Harry Potter in trouble.
That's insane. That's actually some talent, though, to do that. That is some mad respect for Dobby's magical abilities right here.
Yeah, he, like, really tried. But the other interesting thing is, in the movies, Harry Potter was locked up with all of his magical stuff. But in the books, he had nothing in his room except for Hedwig.
Oh, wow.
Everything else was locked in his old room in the cupboard under the stairs. So Fred and George Weasley actually had to use Muggle tricks to break into the house. And then break out of Harry's room and get everything, like, out of the cupboard.
I didn't even remember that. I've read those books, like, 8 times, but, like, obviously over a period of years. But I think it is insane. I mean, I guess Fred and George are older. I don't remember. What, they've got to be, like, 15? No, they're younger than that, because they take their owls.
About, like, 13 or 14.
They're driving a car, though, which is insane to me.
Yeah.
This is the most focus on a car ever, is this one, and they're all, like, 12 and 13. Basically, in the movie, Uncle Vernon, like, grabs Harry's leg so viciously and then, like, falls out of the window, which is so insane. It's, like, insane what happens. It's an amazing stunt. They have him do, like, a lot of stunts, I've noticed, over the Harry Potter movies. But then we get to, oh my god, I love the Burrow so much. If I could live in the Burrow, I think I would be so happy for the rest of my days.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Like, one thing I was really sad about the Burrow, though, is in the book, they have this great scene where they're throwing garden gnomes out of the garden.
Oh, yeah, they do that in the games.
Yeah. In the games, it was so much fun, but they didn't do it in the movie. And I was like, no.
The perfect, like, pickup, like, introduction scene, right? Of, like, somebody tossing the gnome, right? You could have had, like, Percy tossing the gnome and then Molly screaming. The house, though, totally, it has so much stuff in it. It is, like, the hoarder house of charm. It's so great. And then I love the bit of I think it's just like such a great scene of Molly being so nice to Harry and then being, where have you been? Oh my god, you messed up everything to her own kids. Like, it's kind of messed up, but it is also like kind of respectful, because I feel like most parents, when they're yelling at their kids, do not care if they're yelling in front of their friends. And this one, it's like, you're fine, sweetheart, you're not the ones in trouble. I have to yell at my kids so that they know that this was very wrong.
That's so true. And I feel like Molly Weasley actually does a really good job of remembering, like, Harry's past and all the trauma that he's been through, because even in later books and movies, when she's absolutely furious and ready to, like, kill her children, she still remembers to calm down enough to tell Harry, you're okay, I'm not mad at you, if you need anything, I'm here for you.
Yeah, that is so important. I wish more people would do that around, like, traumatized kids. Obviously, I've never raised boys. I don't have any children. But I would feel like that it is probably very hard to teach when you have, like, a group of boy children who are, like, discovering their way into adulthood, get through to them. That is probably a very real parental struggle of, like, they probably don't listen, unfortunately. But one of my favorite lines that she says is like, you best hope I don't put bars on your window, Ron Weasley. She has some of the best lines in here. And what I love about the movies that I do feel, at least that from what I remember about the books, is like you kind of get to see Ginny be in love with Harry a little bit, because this is the first time we kind of see her crush. We kind of saw her shy in the first one, but this one we start to see, like, she can't talk around Harry Potter. She's got such a big crush on him. It's a very nice build in the movies. Honestly, better than Ron and Hermione's build in the movies, which is unfortunate.
Yeah. I did really appreciate that they gave Ginny, like, a few lines, like, when she comes running down the stairs and she's like, Mummy, have you seen my jumper?
So cute.
And then she sees Harry and, like, panics, because in the book, all she does is she sees Harry and, like, runs
she
out.
She won't talk at all. Wow.
Which is, it's kind of hard, because Harry in the books was like, was that a person? Like, what was that?
Well, too, and we see everything from Harry's perspective, and he's, like, a 12-year-old boy who knows if he's paying attention to his best friend's younger sister, right? Like, he's 12. I love that their dad loves muggles. It's so cute. It's so cute. And I love that when he's, like, the opposite of Molly, which understands why she has to be so strict, because he is so good cop to her bad cop. He's like, oh, you broke Harry out? How did it go? Right? He's like, doesn't understand. Probably, like, the best balance of parents. And then, like, classic quotable lines in this movie, because my other one is, like, where he sits down Harry and he's like, what exactly is the function of a rubber duck? I'm like, I can't. It's so good. I would understand that being very confusing to wizard people.
Yes, and the actors did such a good job in this movie. Like, usually you don't see children actors, like, portraying all of those facial emotions, but, like, Harry and Ron and Hermione have all the range of emotions of a full-grown adult, which is amazing.
Yeah, and so needed, because the story is so heavy.
Absolutely. But it's incredible, because when Arthur Weasley sat him down, Daniel Radcliffe, who played Harry Potter, was just like, what do I say to that? Like,
I know. And the way that he listens in that scene, too, he listens, like, so eagerly. Like, I don't think he has any idea what Mr. Weasley is going to say. And then that is, like, the biggest shock anyway. He was like, I already had no idea you were going to say what you're going to say. And now you said that, and I don't really know how to tell you. I don't even know, personally, as a human muggle, how to explain the function of a rubber duck. Right? For funsies, I guess. Bathroom aesthetic? I don't know.
It's like, it's to distract children from the fact that they're getting wet, and that's not always enjoyable.
I loved baths, and I've loved, like, that's, like, my favorite, like, self-care thing. So I've never been a kid who was like, oh, I'm not gonna take a bath, so I can't relate.
Oh, see, I was the kid who I was like, you're not going to stop me from playing outside. I'm not coming in to take a bath. I'm still playing. I don't care that it's midnight. I am still having a party in my backyard.
Oh, that's great. I honestly probably should have gone outside more because now I have a calcium deficiency. So
Oh, no.
you probably should have said no to baths. So then they do the flu powder. Honestly, the flu powder is kind of terrifying to me. I think maybe even more so in the age of COVID, of having any sort of like dust go up your mouth, because that's like what messes up Harry is that he like garbles the words, and then he ends up in that like creepy store. I can't remember what that, it's like Borgin and Burke's, right? Is that, oh my god. Yes. And then that hand, it was so creepy in the video game. It's so creepy in the movie. I don't know how any children can watch this without nightmares of that hand that like grabs him. You know what I'm talking about? The like, oh yeah, so absolutely. And then all of the scary people in the alley, like it is literally terrifying. And I feel like that scene goes on for a pretty long time.
And it's even longer in the extended version.
Oh, is it?
I don't know if you've seen, like, yeah, so when I watched the movie in theaters, I was like, they did a really bad job on this scene, because in the books, there's this whole part where, like, Draco Malfoy and his father come into the shop. And in the extended version, they do that. But, like, they do a really good job.
I think I remember that. Yeah, I remember a little part of that. Yeah, that's a good, because he's like looking at it in the vanishing cupboard that becomes important later, right? Like that's where he hides, yeah. So he gets rescued by Hagrid, who was only in the area for flesh-eating slug repellent, which is hilarious. Right. I mean, he's a gamekeeper. It is very funny, but it is like, I used to go to like black market that.
You also learned that like in later books, that wasn't why he was there. Like,
why was he there? I didn't know that.
He was there to buy the egg for Norbert the dragon.
Oh, but Norbert's in the first one, I thought. So why? How is this in the second?
I know in like the 6th book or something, it goes back and says that he was there to like buy some dragon egg or something.
Yeah, probably trying to redo it, trying to get another egg, and then Harry stops him. So then they meet up with Hermione, who repairs his glasses again, just like I think she did in the first one.
Which is interesting that she doesn't get flagged for using a spell outside of school.
That is weird. I guess, I don't know does it count if you're in Diagon Alley, or do you have to be on school grounds?
What I've heard is that, from what I've read, it's they can't tell exactly who casts the spell. They can only tell the area. So I think that in the movies they let Hermione get away with it because there's a whole bunch of adult wizards there. But in the books, it's Arthur Weasley who fixes the glasses. It's not Hermione.
That is crazy. Wow. Yeah, because they do magic on the train too, and I was like, what are the rules of this? But we'll get into that. So then we meet, Gilroy Lockhart. Whose husband, who was actually, his husband is Professor, I'm going to butcher her name, Tweedly the deviation, oh my god, I'm like tumbling, but the deviation teacher, you know, they were married in real life for a time. I think they divorced now, don't quote me, but I always thought that was fascinating when I found that out. I was like, I would not picture them in the Potter universe as a couple, but also if you think about it, it does kind of work. Like, if I was going to hook him up with anybody, that would make sense. And then he makes, obviously, this big deal. It's like the original Instagram collab of, like, Gilroy Lockhart and Harry Potter when he sees them, I guess, for publicity. And then he, like, gives Harry all of his collected works for free, which kind of sucks because Harry is rich enough to afford it, right? Like, he could have bought all of that very easily. And then Molly's like, oh, I'll get them signed, which I think it's hilarious how, like, all of the women fangirl over him. I never understood. I could tell that he had a good smile, but I've never understood his appeal.
Yeah, also, I feel like when we were kids and the movies came out, we weren't at the same maturity, because it seems to be, like, mostly the adult females that are super into
Hermione has a crush on him, though, too. Yeah,
but Hermione was, like, the most mature witch.
That's very true.
So I feel like he appealed to a certain crowd. And I look at celebrities nowadays, and I'm like, which celebrity is most like Lockhart? And I'm not sure. So I'm not going to, throw out any names.
You don't even have a hunch? You wouldn't say this is what you think is the closest?
Well, it's just like, not this time, no. It's just interesting because like Lockhart, obviously did not do everything that he said that he did. And so it's just like interesting looking at certain celebrities and being like, did you really do that though?
Well, most celebrities, it's like, it seems like one person does this whole thing, but it's usually not. Usually, like, most famous people have a team of, like, 10 people that, like, help them, right, get to the way that they are. Like, some people, they only get the audition because they knew somebody who has the audition or the power to get them that audition, so they're not really, it's not like they've done everything themselves. I mean, it's really kind of hard for any job to kind of be completely self-made because we do rely on other people.
Yeah. And it's totally fine. And I feel like it's fine to get help, but what Lockhart did is he took credit for everything, even if it was like way out of his purview.
Yeah, and I definitely feel like in the 1950s and the 1960s, that was definitely happening. Like, I don't know if you've seen Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, but that is, they would take Black people's music and then like refilter it. Like, they get the Black songwriters because they had all the talent, they had all the groove, and then they would remanufacture it and pretend and like give the white band leader the song. So in like a way, I feel that that is like the racism degree of like what Gilroy Lockhart was doing. And obviously he was going and doing it to people who were probably on the outskirts of the cities, right? Like, not anybody who's like very involved with other people, because they would have told about their tales, right? And then he would have been like, then he had to pick people who were isolated. So he's real messed up. Dumbledore gets so many messed up people to the Defense Against the Dark. Like, what is going on there? That seems really messed up. But anyway, Malfoy gets so heated and jealous that Harry is going to a bookshop, and he can't even go to the bookshop without making the front page. And then he embarrasses Ginny and is like, oh, is that your girlfriend, Potter? But way to call it, though, right? Who would have thought that he was so emotionally perceptive, Draco Malfoy? Yeah. I guess you have to be like a bully. And then Lucius does this thing, Draco's father, he like grabs Harry by the forehead, the scar, like just touches this 12-year-old boy in public. Like, what the absolute heck? Like, oh my god, like, I guess there weren't any adults nearby, but it's insane. And then that's when they start repeating the quote. I think it was Hermione, because they were like they mentioned Voldemort, and that's when they first say something that I think is so important, like, fear of a name increases the fear of the thing itself. That quote resonates with me so much.
It really does. It's like, it's so applicable even in reality.
Yeah, because if you don't talk about anything, you're never going to be able to figure out any solutions. That is like the number one way of like, oh, don't talk about this. Oh, don't call it by its name, right? Then you're never going to be able to figure out, well, how do we make this thing right? How do we get better? It's like a fearness of like progress, because fear keeps you down. And then I love, Harry is so sassy sometimes in these movies, and I love how, like, he's, like, such an emo boy. Sometimes he's like, Voldemort killed my parents. Like, everybody knows that, right? And it's like, he's like, you just knew that, like, only a year ago, honey, but okay.
Right? I love how he's like, he's nothing more than a murderer. And I'm like, you're saying this to the biggest family that supports Voldemort and is, like, rooting for him to win. You just, like, signed your death warrant. You're, like, 12. You don't know how to do things.
I mean, I think they were always going to hate him because that was a shift in their power, for sure. I'm sure the Malfoys are on edge that Voldemort is, like, currently nowhere to be found, right? Yeah, or, like, very weak.
Oh, for sure. That's the other reason that I love the book, because they go more into depth about that. Like, in the scene in Borgin and Burke's, before Harry escapes from there, Draco is complaining about Harry Potter and how he always gets attention and everyone thinks he's great just because he's got a scar on his forehead. And his dad goes, you know, it's not prudent to openly hate Harry Potter when all of wizard kind loves him. And I was like, Lucius Malfoy is a sneaky, conniving, backstabbing, like, he is out for himself, and that's it. But he cares about his son enough to warn him, you shouldn't be complaining about Harry Potter. This is not going to bode well for you.
But Draco, I feel like, is nothing more than, like, an accessory to Lucy. Like, he's such a narcissist that he doesn't care about who Draco is. I think this is why Draco acts out in the way that he does. I think, like, probably the only love he gets is from his mother, who we don't even meet until very, very much later. But yeah, so they insult the Weasleys more. They call, like, because of their vacant expressions, which is so mean. They're so mean to him. And then they kind of talk about something that I think is so cool when they're like, well, I guess we both have different ideas of what disgraces a wizard. And it's like the ultimate clapback, but that is so strong. That is such a great, like, statement. Yes.
Yes. I love that line. So that line wasn't in the books. In the books, they actually got into a fist fight.
Oh, wow. I didn't even remember that. Who fought who?
It was Arthur Weasley punched Lucius Malfoy, and they descended into, like, a fist fight, which was so cool reading about in the books. But this is where I actually think the movies did it better. That one line was so much more powerful than seeing a fight.
Well, and it's better than promoting violence, right? Like, it's better. Sure. It's always to say, like, just get him with the word, right? Like, because violence is never going to solve anything. Although I do feel respect for Arthur Weasley for going for it. But yeah, basically, Now we know where Draco gets it from. And I loved the, like, dynamic that they have where Lucius goes to Arthur and he's like, see you at work. And then Draco goes to Harry and he's like, see you at school, right? Like, the like, father, like, son. Oh, such a good scene. So much tension that we're building. And so then this is where they can't get into platform 9 3/4, where they just absolutely crash hard into this wall. And I never understood for the life of me why they didn't just wait. They were like, oh my God, we missed the train. There's no way we'll be able to go. And I was like, why don't you just wait for your parents to come back, Ron? And I'm sure they would have a solution for you. Like, you can't be the first kids ever.
Well, that's true. But it also says, like, Ron has that line in the movie where he's like, well, if we can't get through, maybe mom and dad can't get back.
Oh, yeah.
So they were kind of panicked, thinking that they were just really all alone. And in the books, it did a better job of, like, describing Hedwig was just going insane, like screaming and screeching and
adding to the tension,
really
and the panic.
And all of the Muggles were looking at them and gathering around.
Oh, no, yeah.
And Harry was like, we're attracting too much attention. We're going to get in trouble for attracting attention.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about this. I do think, though, that most of Harry Potter problems could be solved with a little bit of patience. But
they really could, you know.
But I totally I forgot kind of a bad job about it, and I feel like in the movies where there's not as much, like, they just, like, automatically are like, okay, we'll take the car, right? I feel like it jumps a little, and I get it because time. But then they go, Harry's like, oh, Ron, you know, like, by the way, Muggles don't like seeing flying cars. But I don't know about that. Maybe back then, but I feel like nowadays they'd be like, oh, look at this drone. Yes.
Oh my gosh. Nowadays, people would be like, oh, it's a UFO. Cool.
Yeah, they'd be like, oh, and they would call the UFO people. Because I guess there's like a hotline that you can report UFOs to.
Really?
It's insane. Yeah.
That's amazing.
When Elon Musk, he like launched something, and I was living in Canoga Park at the time, and you could see it from there, and like everybody panicked because I don't think everybody knew. And then this UFO guy stops me and my aunt in the street, and he's like, oh, don't worry, I work for this company where they report UFOs. Elon Musk told us that he was doing this today because he was like, I bet we're going to get a lot of reportings. And I was like, I want that job, I think.
Yes. Oh,
I was like, gosh. That would be so cool. Speaking of, like, crazy action scenes, I guess, one of my favorite things when they're ahead of the train, they're like, oh, I don't see it, and then it's like, they end up being ahead of it, and then Hedwig's eyes go huge. Oh my god.
Yes.
So good. I kind of hate when I get it because it's an action scene and you gotta raise all the stakes, but then, like, Harry, for whatever reason, just, like, falls out of the car. Like, I don't even know how that happens.
I know. I remember watching that in theaters, and my dad leans over and he's like, that's why you always wear a seatbelt. And I was like, all right, way to advertise.
That's exactly why they did that movie. They did it so that every parent could turn to their kid and be like, wear a seatbelt. This is an important moment in car safety.
Oh, I was just like watching that as an adult now. I'm like, why wasn't he wearing a seatbelt? Like, did they not have seatbelts?
Yeah, I don't even know. Yeah. It didn't look like, I don't remember seeing seatbelts in that car, but I don't know. He's 12, you know what I mean? He doesn't have any, I'm probably sure that the Dursleys have never even hardly taken him in a car and probably didn't tell him to wear a seatbelt, hoping that he would just horrible. Like die in a car accident, right? That's like terrible, but I'm sure like I would feel like that's what they're gonna do. And then, so then it's like, welcome home, here's beautiful Hogwarts, but then psych, the Whomping Willow tree is angered. It is so angry.
I feel like the Whomping Willow really had a right to be angry, though. Like, if a car crashed into you, wouldn't you, like, if you survived, wouldn't you be like, excuse me, what do you think you're doing?
And the car, I mean, this car gets wrecked so hard. It's like, just the 12-year-old things, you know, wrecking cars. I remember when I was 12 and wrecking my own car. Like, I don't understand. I totally understand when they get in so much trouble. And honestly, though, Scabbers, Hedwig, I can maybe understand surviving this car wreck because she can fly, right, and, like, get out. She's got the beak that she could unlock her thing. Scabbers should have died in this car wreck.
He should have been squished, but also Ron should have broken his nose because he fell against the steering wheel, and the only thing that broke was his wand. I'm like, I'm sorry, you guys are magical, but you're not immune to pain.
Well, maybe his wand, I could argue that maybe his wand, like, did a defensive spell, because he was, like, 12, right? Yeah. And so their magic is kind of hormonal. So maybe his wand, like, was like, I'll take the sacrifice for you, not your beautiful nose, right? And, like, protected his face or whatever.
Maybe, but then, like, why didn't Harry get hurt at all either? Like, they're not wearing seatbelts. We've already established that.
Because of the love curse, or the love protection, obviously. That's why Harry was untouched. Of his mother's love. Wow. Love
that
saves
was my
all.
bad then.
But the car anyway goes on, just like drives itself, and then it's the original Tesla.
Yes, that's where Elon Musk got his idea.
Yeah, and then Harry's like, okay, clearly someone does not want me to be here, and then he gets caught by Flinch, and then Flinch is like, just like freaking out, and is like, you damaged the tree, even though I will say, I do think that the willow tree, the Whomping Willow, it did way more damage to them than they did to it.
Did, but like, Filch is so salty about, like, I don't understand why he works there. Because
he's not appropriate. He's not good with children.
And then he's also, this is a total spoiler, but he's a squib. Like,
they don't talk about it in the movies. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because they allude to it in the extended edition of this film. When Harry and Ron are leaving Snape's office after getting yelled at, Filch is standing there holding Mrs. Norris, and there's a letter on the ground, and Harry picks it up, and it says, like, I forget what it says, but it's, like, addressed to the squib, Argus Filch. And Harry's like, I think you dropped this. And clearly Harry doesn't know what a squib is yet. But Filch is, like, so embarrassed in the film. He, like, snatches the letter and then just stands there, like, eyes wide. But that's, like, all they did with it. And I was just like, come on.
It's hard because all of his shame, I mean, I guess it has to be from, like, kind of the, like, racism and classism from the wizarding world, right? Of this, like, the squib thing. Because there really shouldn't be, you can't control whether you have magic or not. Like, it's not really your fault. So, and it's like, and it's not like he's not involved, but it's, like, hard because it's like, I bet you that shame kind of turned him into, like, a mean, weird person, right? So then they think that Harry and Ron are going to be on the train home tonight, but McGonagall is like, she's the head of the house, and she's like, just kidding, they're not expelled. Like, lucky for them. I wonder if most head of houses will just be like, you're gonna go expel my kids? Well, you can't, because I'm the head of house. Boom. These are how the rules work. But they do have to get detention, and they are writing to families. I always wonder, did the Dursleys even read that letter, or did they just go, of course, and throw it away? Like,
right? I wonder. I'm like, did they read it, or did they burn it because it came from someone magical?
But I would have loved to see that scene, like, an extent of them getting the letter and being like, okay, yes. What do you expect? And then we see the mandrakes, and I freaking love the mandrakes so much. This is probably one of my favorite, like, creatures of Harry Potter.
Yes. Okay, they were like stupidly cute in a really weird way.
Oh my god, yes. I think they used to have
really?
like a toy mandrake too that they made that was like in a pot that you could pull out. Yes. And it like, it was so, and it would like move, you know, it was all like plastic, but it was cool.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, if there's not, you should definitely bring that toy back because I would get a mandrake toy.
Oh, I'd get a few. I'd have them all on my windowsill.
But anyway, they help those who've been petrified, but their cry is fatal, and it will knock you out for several hours. But then the Neville, which is very interesting because Neville is supposed to be really good at herbology. Like, that's like his big thing. And they like use him as the one that faints. And they just leave him fainted there.
That scene was so funny, though. Like, Professor Sprout is just like, oh, just leave him there.
They don't even take him to the nurse's office or anything. They're like, whatever, he just sleep. I mean, I guess, like, sleeping outdoors is probably a big cure for a lot of things. Or, like, in a greenhouse would probably be very good for you, right? Surrounded by plants.
Yeah. But it's just also so interesting because, like, in the book, they have other plants in the same greenhouse, and one of them is a venomous tentacula, I think is the name. And Professor Sprout says, now be careful of this plant because it's teething, because it was, like, trying to eat her. And I was like, so if he had fainted, I don't think that in the books they would have left him there, because the venomous tentacula could have eaten him then.
Yeah, would have gnawed on sleeping Neville. Like, oh my goodness. Oh, I love this world. It's so crazy. And so then we meet Colin Creevey, who is like, I feel like the OG social media person. He's like just taking pictures of everything.
Oh my gosh. He's the social media influencer of the Harry Potter world.
He's the OG one. And then we also meet Harold the Bat Owl. This is the only, I think, cameo he gets, because he's a Weasley's owl, right? And he's like just...
Yes, so his name is actually
Errol. Okay.
Yeah, which is a really interesting name, because it does sound like
Harold.
And, like, I feel like that's what it sounds like, but in the books, like, it's spelled Errol.
E with an E.
Which is really interesting, yeah. But I feel so bad for him, because he's so old. Like, he's not a useful owl anymore, and they keep using him.
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe they don't have the money to buy an owl. Harry needs to invest. The Weasleys have done a lot for him. He should buy an owl.
Oh my gosh. But the Weasleys actually bought a second owl. They bought a brand new owl for their son Percy when he became a prefect. And Percy is refusing to share his owl. He's like, no, this is just for me.
Oh, Percy's such a jerk. Like, I can't. He's like he's almost more evil than Voldemort. He's such a jerk.
He really is, because, like, oh my gosh, he's such a spoiled, whiny brat, because he's like, no, I became a prefect, so Mom and Dad bought this for me, and no, Mom and Dad, you can't use my owl, you bought it for me. And it's like, this is your parents you're talking about, like, what the heck?
Molly, though, coddles him. I think that's part of the problem. Like, she doesn't say, no, if we have to use it, the whole family has to use it, it's yours primarily, like, whatever. So then Ron gets the Howler, and Neville's like, listen, you don't want to ignore the Howler. It's horrible. And I love that, like, literally the whole Great Hall is silent during this Howler, right? Like, everybody from every team of every age has to listen to her scream.
Well, I feel like that's kind of like high school. Like, if you get yelled at in high school, everyone's going to stop and listen because, ooh, spill the tea.
People love drama.
Yes.
So then we are introduced to Gilroy Lockhart again as the Defense Against the Dark arch teacher. He won the Witch Weekly's Most Charming Smile, which I will have to agree. He does have a very good smile. And he advises everybody to not scream at the pixies. I agree. Don't yell at me.
Are you a pixie?
Do not scream at me. Thank you. And he literally... Gilroy Lockhart, I don't even understand how he's so smart at memory charms, because he's literally like, okay, I'm not going to teach you any spell, I'm not going to say any lesson, I'm going to barely tell you about these pixies, I'm just going to let them loose, right? Like, let them fly, that seems so safe.
The confidence of this man, because he's just like, I'm going to let him fly, and I'm going to handle it.
With an utter disaster. I will say, this is, like, cool scenery, too, because if this, like, Defense Against the Dark classroom is probably, like, the coolest coolest one, because this is the one with the big dinosaur above. And I think they, like, recreated it when you go to, like, the Harry Potter ride, because they knew that was the best one. Basically, Hermione, of course, saves the day, because Hermione should just be teaching at the school at this point, even though she's 12. And she immobilizes all the pixies. But then poor Neville is, like, hanged on the dinosaur from the pixies, and then he's like, why is it always me? And I definitely feel like I'm constantly feeling Neville vibes the older I get. Like, we laughed at him when we were younger, but little did we know we were feeling Neville. And then we learned that Malfoy is the new Seeker, and that the Slytherins have taken over Gryffindor's practice day because he's the new Seeker, and that his daddy bought everybody Nimbus 2001s. So he bought his way in to being the Seeker, because if Harry Potter's doing it, I honestly feel like Malfoy has such a repressed homosexual crush on Harry Potter. Like, that's the only explanation, right? Of, like, I have to be doing everything that Harry Potter is doing, right? Like, it's so insane. Right?
Well, I really want to see Harry Potter from Draco Malfoy's point of view, because he grew up his whole life probably being told that Harry Potter is the worst wizard to ever live, that he should be dead, all this stuff. And then he goes to this school where everyone loves him. And he's like, no, you don't understand. He's a bad person. The whole school's just like, oh no, he's the greatest wizard to have ever lived. He defeated the Dark Lord. And Draco was probably told from a very young age that the Dark Lord was like the savior of all of wizard kind. And he's just there like, no, you don't understand. So, like, Draco has all of these, like, abusive tendencies that he has to, like, unlearn.
Well, like, his mom loves Draco, I almost think, too much, right? And has coddled Draco to be this amazing person. And then he comes to school and, like, Harry Potter stole it. Like, and he's like, what the hell? Like, you know what I mean? I'm supposed to be the, like, standout wizard this year, right? Mummy told me, right? Like, like, awful. But this is such a pivotal scene. And this is one of the big things that I kind of want to talk about and see your perspective. Because J.K. Rowling, like, haphazardly did this tweet. He was like, oh, Hermione could have been black, right? And then they cast her as black for Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, that book. I don't know if you've read, there's like a play. And then she got like a bunch of flack from that, because there is like just like paragraphs of her where they say Hermione is pale, but I think you could technically be pale and black, but I don't know. I mean, in the drawings of the picture book, she's,
I think you can. I mean, especially when, like, people get sick, a lot of times they're pale, and that doesn't have anything to do with, like, your skin color. It's, like, the fact that you look paler than you are.
It's usually more about, like, the amount of sunlight you get, too, right? That can make you look more, if you're in the dark more, you end up being pale no matter what your skin color is. But this is where he calls Hermione a mudblood. Draco calls her, and it is, like, an oof in the stomach. It hurts so hard. And then Ron's wand is broken, but he is not going to have Malfoy talking to Hermione that way. And so he says to Malfoy, eat slugs, and then it backfires on him, which sucks so bad. I feel bad when this happens. And then Colin Creevy takes a picture of this moment. What?
He's got to keep up his influencer status.
And he's like, I got it. This is going to be an amazing post. I'm going to get so many likes. Oh my god. So they go to Hagrid, who, like, is taking care of Ron, and then they explain that, like, mudblood is a foul name. It means dirty blood, and that the Malfoys use it because they think they're better because of their pure blood. And it's like, this is such a disgusting thing, and I feel like this thing is, like, it's kind of dropped, and then it's, like, kind of taken on that, like, Voldemort feels the same way, sort of, even though he isn't a pureblood. He's like a pureblood pretender later, but it's a powerful thing and is only kind of kept in this world, I feel like, in the second book.
Yeah, I think it's also really interesting how strongly Hermione reacts to it, because she was raised as a muggle. Like, she did not know about this world until she got her letter from Hogwarts. So I was like, what kind of books are you reading, Hermione, to have this strong of a reaction to being called a mudblood?
I don't know. I haven't really been in the presence of any racism comics because I would shut them down as quickly as possible, right? Like, and I haven't obviously been on the end. Been on the end. Like, people have called me, like, names online, right, and to my face that are, but you get desensitized after a while, you know? But I feel like to hear it, though, and to know that somebody feels that way, like, that, like, no matter, even if you didn't know what it's called, you can, like, hear the venom behind somebody's words, and the sadness of, like, knowing that somebody thinks like that, right? Because what a limited and terrible and evil mindset, right? Like, there's, like, a sorrow in being like, wow, you think like that? Amazing, right? Like, that sucks. Like, that's really sad that is working for you. And so, anyway, we'll get off with something less serious, because Hagrid at least tells Hermione, and I want to tell anybody who's listening, who's been on, like, the side of, like, a derogatory comment, that, like, don't think on it. Whatever they said that you can't do because of whatever limitations they perceive about you, they're wrong. I was like, I think that message is not out there enough, but they're wrong. And so Gilroy Lockhart has Harry answering fan mail for detention, and which is, honestly, I think that would be the best detention ever. A very great detention. And then this is where it starts to get even more creepy. This book is so dark, and this movie is so dark. And Harry hears this voice, and it's like, come to me. I smell blood. Let me rip you. Let me kill you. He's like 12 years old hearing this, right? Like, what? I don't even know what I would do if I heard this at 12. And then he sees spiders fleeing, and he goes and is, like, following this voice, and then Mrs. Norris, Flitch's cat, is petrified. And then there's the Chamber of Secrets has been opened, enemies of the air beware, and it's written in blood on the wall. And it totally does look like Harry and his friends did it because they were the first to find it, right? And then, of course, Malfoy, because he's the worst in this movie, is like, you're next, Mudbloods, which is, just awful. Like, definitely, I feel like middle school behavior, unfortunately, but it's just like, stop, white boy, stop. Just stop it.
Yes. He's just jumping on the bandwagon. He's just like, aha, someone here is on my side.
Ugh, he's the worst. And then poor Flinch breaks down, even though he totally gave Hagrid shit when he was sad about Norbert in the first one. But this also, to me, this is the number one reason Flinch shouldn't be my kids. Because he's like, I'm going to kill you kids for doing this to Miss Norris. Like, you can't work with children and say you're going to kill them. I'm sorry. You have to be fired. Like, you can't, that is just not okay. You can't just tell kids. That's really damaging.
I feel like Dumbledore kind of has a habit of hiring people who should not be there because he wants to rehabilitate them.
Yeah, but Dumbledore, there's a different program for that. It's not a school where you're teaching children, right? Like, this is not it. Like, then open up a school of rehabilitation, like open up a continuing ed class, but don't teach people. Dumbledore, so much I could say about Dumbledore, but anyway, Dumbledore does know the counter curse. What kind of gets me so mad in this is that Dumbledore in the second one, he acts so mysterious, but he knew what the heck was up, right? Like, he had to know that this was, like, the beginning of a horror. He had to know semi what direction this was going in.
Yeah.
But at least he saves Harry, and he's like, oh, I just believe that Harry was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And I get so mad that Harry does this, but he lies that he heard the voice. And if he had heard the voice, like, how many other, like, people would have not been petrified, right? Like, I get that it's, like, scary to admit, but I wish that he was, like, yeah, I heard this, right? Like, that would have maybe been a clue at least. Always tell the truth. That's, if you are 12 out there, tell the truth and tell it to an adult you trust. Dumbledore just is like, I recommend caution, which, honestly, this is, like, the message for 2021, right? Like, just keep playing this voice clip by Dumbledore in the second movie over and over, that he recommends caution to all. And honestly, I am very worried about Ron Weasley and his wand that is broken, because he's going to fail every class this year, because you use your wand for everything.
Right? And he's going to end up hurting himself and other students. Like, I am amazed that Professor McGonagall didn't make him, like, write to his parents and get a new wand. Or that Harry, his best friend with billions of galleons and sickles, couldn't spring for a new wand. Like,
yeah, this seems unsafe. Or it seems like they should have, like, a school program of, like, oh, if you broke your wand, we've got a wand fix shop, right? Like, because you're away, right? I think Diagon Alley is far from Hogwarts at this point.
Yeah, but I feel like they could have, like, written to a wand maker, or, like, they have used brooms that people can use, so why don't they have used wands that people can borrow?
I know in the lore that it's like, it's harder to use somebody else's wand and not your wand, but I think it's still safer than a broken wand.
Yeah. I feel like even if it's not broken, if it chooses not to work for you, that's fine. At least you're not eating slugs.
Yeah. Or turning your rat into a cup. Like,
yeah.
And oof, the fact that rat is a person, Jesus.
That's gotta be so uncomfortable for that guy.
Maybe he did suffer. Maybe we shouldn't be mad that Pettigrew lived.
I don't know. He suffered a lot, and then he was still a pretty awful person when he, like, changed back. So I think we can still be mad.
So then they asked McGonagall to tell them about the Chamber of Secrets, even though they're in Transfiguration class and not history class. Because in the book, it's different, right? It's not her. It's the ghost, right?
Yeah, the ghost of the history class is the one who teaches. But they don't really show a ghost teaching a history class in the movies at all.
Yeah. I'm assuming because of special effects costs, they already have to do Nearly Headless Nick and everybody. They were like, we're just gonna make it her. Basically, they explain that Hogwarts was founded by 4 people, and then Slytherin wanted to be more selective and only have all magic families, and then he got mad and he left the school, but before he left the school, he built a hidden chamber and sealed it until his hair could open.
Really, that's, even with magic, that's gotta be hard to keep, like, if there are 4 owners of a building, and the other 3 don't notice what's going on, and don't know where, like, this magical sealed chamber is, like, you've got to be really good at magic to keep that a secret.
Yeah, so they searched the whole school, and they couldn't find anything, but Hogwarts has just, like, been casually the home of a monster for, like, years. It's crazy. And so then Hermione has this idea, because they suspect that it's Malfoy is somehow behind it, because he's so evil, so I get it, that's, I guess, a step in the right direction, and they're semi-right, but she's like, okay, we're gonna break, like, 50 school rules, but we're gonna make a Polyjuice Potion. Unfortunately, it takes a month to make, but they are like, okay, we're down, we're gonna do it, which is insane. That has to be, like, such complicated levels of magic. Like, you're right that I think that she is reading some very advanced material. That's why she's so mature. She's just thirsty for knowledge. Then you have this epic broom race between Harry and Malfoy, and the Enchanted Bludger. Every time I see this movie, it freaks me out. It is so scary to me. Mm-hmm. I hated sports class, though, because I was always afraid that I was going to get hit in the head with a ball.
Oh, true. I always did get hit in the head with a ball. But I feel like Quidditch is the only sport that, like, I actually cared about growing up. Because I was like, yeah, you might get hit in the head with a ball, but you also have a really fast racing broom underneath you. You're not depending on your own feet to, like, get away from it. You can just, like, zoom around on a broom.
Ugh, I want a zoomy broom.
Yes, same.
And Ron then wants to stop the bludger with his broken wand, and they're like, Ron, like, stop. You're gonna kill Harry if you do that.
Yeah.
Do not do this, Ron. What I'm always confused, there are so many times I'm like, bruh, why don't they call off the game? This game is like, these are children, this is dangerous, just call it off and, like, fix it and then resume, right? Like, why the integrity of the game is so important, even if it's, like, out of control, somebody might die.
That's a very good point. Like, what were these adults doing that they were like, oh, these 11 and 12-year-olds will be fine. They're on brooms with no safety nets, like, 50 miles above the earth.
Yeah, and a bludger that's not acting to code, right? You can see it in the stands. You just be like, okay, Rudy, we're going to stop the game, we're going to fix the bludger, and then we're going to continue, right? Like, yeah. That's all you have to do. Nobody does that. And then one of my other favorite lines, even though Malfoy is such a piece of shit, but I love when he goes to Harry and he's like, training for the ballet, Potter, you know, like, so good. He has
such good one-liners. And there's a Harry Potter musical by Star Kid Productions.
Oh, yes, I love it. Oh, my God. I'm going to review those, too. You should totally.
Oh, yes, they're my favorite. Yeah. But, like, Malfoy has great one-liners in that one, too. Like, I just feel like Malfoy as a character just has great one-liners.
He's so snippy. He would have the best Twitter, as awful as it would be.
He really would.
He's doing what Trump
Oh, my gosh. I feel like Malfoy is, like, the Wendy's Twitter.
Yeah, for sure. But anyway, Harry ends up catching the snitch. But he broke his arm really bad. And Gilroy Lockhart is like, I'll fix it. And Harry literally goes, not you. Which I die. That is so bold and sassy. He's like, no, not you. Please, not you.
And then Gilroy Lockhart is so confident. He's like, oh, the boy's delirious. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
This is like out of control. It is so funny though. It's like terrible in real life. Like this would be an awful situation to be Harry Potter in, right? To have this complete buffoon who's like, no, I can fix that, knowing very full well that he cannot. Right? And then, yeah, I just can't. But Gilroy Lockhart removes all of the bones, and it is so gross. It's so cool that how they do it, like special effects, right? But it's so gross. It's so gross. And then the bludger comes back one more time to try to get Harry, and because no adult will do it, Hermione like blows it up. So basically Hermione should run this school.
She really should,
because she's the only one who's on it. And then we go to the hospital, and Malfoy is just moaning in the bed, and then the nurse is like, Malfoy, you can go, you're fine. So great.
It's interesting that, like, I think it was Pansy Parkinson.
Oh, yeah.
That was, she's beside him, like, taking care of him. And so he's moaning and groaning for her. Like, he's just like, oh, no, I'm so hurt. Take care of me. And then Madame Pomfrey is just like, I don't even care, bro. There's nothing wrong with you. Like, get out of here. And, like, you don't get to see it, but I feel like the look on Pansy Parkinson's face would have been amazing.
Oh yeah, to be like, you were just hamming it up, like I'm not your mama. And so Harry Potter then has to regrow his bones, which ouch, and then he has to drink pumpkin juice, which isn't good. I've had it even at the thing, and it is not good. I've had it. It's not very good. You want it to be good because pumpkin juice, and like Starbucks is making a great go with pumpkin stuff, but pumpkin juice is not. It's so bitter. It's gross. But I don't, if you like pumpkin juice, not to shame you, sorry, but to me, it was disgusting. They were right. And so then Harry's casually healing, in bed, and then he hears kill, kill, kill. And then Dobby pops up and he's like, hey, I did the bludger. Do you love me? Essentially, like, don't be mad at me. I ironed my hands. Can you forgive me? And then Harry's like, no, like, what the heck? Why did you do that? He's like, you better clear off before my bones come back because I'm gonna hurt you because this is insane. You're being so terrible. And then Dobby's like, well, I get death threats every day, so I understand. It's so sad. Like, Dobby is problematic, and then you try to be like, Dobby, you're, you need to stop. And he's like, yeah, I understand. I'm punished every day, right? And you're like, oh, I don't know what to say to this poor creature.
It's so sad because Dobby is, like, bound to serve this one family that abuses him for his entire life.
Yeah.
So he never, like, he obviously has feelings, but he doesn't know how to express those feelings because the family that he's bound to abuses the crap out of him. He's like, oh, that's how I show my feelings. I will hurt people, and then I'll hurt myself to make them feel better about the fact that I hurt them.
Yeah. It's awful. I also wonder if he hurts himself, too, because there is a conscience in Dobby. Obviously, he wouldn't come and tell Harry Potter if there wasn't. But he, like, hurts himself because he knows that he's helping these people be more evil and that he is, like, he's a complicit of the system. You know what I mean? Like, he is... And so he feels guilty. Oh, it's so sad. But then he informs Harry that he is in a sack and he's in slavery until they give him clothes, which feels like a very sad homeless metaphor as well. Very thinly disguised, right? Which feels so sad.
Yeah.
And it is crazy. Like, I took an image consulting class over this, like, quarantine, and it is wild how many assumptions that we make based on people's, like, clothing and makeup and hair. Like, we are entirely judgmental creatures as humans.
We are.
Wild.
It's terrible.
Yeah. So then we see that Colin Creevey has been petrified, and they tried to see his attacker through his camera, so social media saves, except unfortunately this time, because it wasn't an iPhone that's impervious to, like, everything except water, right? And even then, you could back up your information in the cloud, so you'd still be able to get it, but if iPhones were real in Harry Potter, but they can't identify the picture because the camera is, like, completely broken, and Dumbledore is like, Hogwarts is no longer safe, although the way they've been treating some of these kids, I don't know if Hogwarts was ever safe. So they're doing the Polyjuice Potion in the girls' bathroom that nobody comes in because of Moaning Myrtle, who is my spirit animal.
She really is. Oh my gosh. So that actress is amazing in absolutely everything that she does.
Oh, she deserves an Oscar.
But the way she portrayed Moaning Myrtle was so spot on.
It's so good. We'll talk more about her as she gets to be more prevalent, because we just get like a snippet of her here. And so then we have the dueling club where Snape and Gilroy are teaching them how to block. I guess it seems like they're doing this school-wide because the school has gotten dangerous, that they're just teaching them to face the danger, which I think is kind of smart for a school to do, not to be like, just hide. They're like, okay, here's how to handle it, right? Because it's becoming unavoidable. And I remember so much the lines from the trailer, because it was during this dueling scene, and Malfoy always goes to Potter, he goes, "You scared, Potter?" And Harry goes, "You wish." And that was like, it was on every freaking trailer, that snippet, and I just like remember that culturally. But then Malfoy ends up cheating, and he's like 1 second earlier, and I swear he says Ricta Sempra, which I feel like that is very similar, if not the same one, to the one that Harry then uses on him later in book 6, that like makes him bleed, right? It sounds very similar.
It does sound very similar. It could be that Harry like knew that and was like, aha, remember what you did to me? I'm gonna get you back.
Yeah, it was scary. And so that spell, though, instead of like slicing him up and making him bleed all over as it does in the 6th one, this one makes a snake, and then Harry just talks to the snake, no big deal. He's 12 using the devil voice in front of all these people, but it's not big, just parcel mouthing out. And then Ron and Hermione are like, yo, like, why didn't you tell us you were a Parselmouth? And he was like, oh, like, I didn't really know. I mean, I set a python on Dudley accidentally once, but, so what? It's Dudley. Doesn't understand. And it's crazy that he, like, didn't know he was speaking a different language.
Yeah, it really is. Because even people who are, like, multilingual, they'll know when they're speaking a different language.
Yeah. I wonder if he's so traumatized that he's just desensitized himself, so he doesn't know, like, he can't tell, about certain things, because when you're trauma, you, like, remove from yourself, you dissociate a lot. So I wonder if he was just in a mass state of dissociation about that. I never understood this with Ron and Hermione, but they suppose they're like, oh, maybe you're related to Voldemort. And I'm like, that's not possible, because everybody already knows his mom's a mudblood and his dad was a pureblood, and it's like, so he's not related, right?
Well,
like,
another spoiler is that Voldemort was also a mudblood.
Yeah. So you think that they might be related Muggle-wise?
Like, I feel like they could be. And that could be part of the reason that Voldemort hates him so much, is because he knows that they're, like, distantly related. But that's not in any of the lore. That's just my speculation.
Ooh, that would be deep. Yeah. No, I think you're right, though. That definitely makes it more personal, right? And I do feel like, I feel like Voldemort acted out so much because he hates his dad, and he, like, just hates his family, and it's just, like, a hate that got fed so much. But, yeah, so anyway, Harry Potter is starting to lose his mind, tortured all his life. It goes. It's going great. And then he gets caught following the trail of, like, I think it's just, like, water, and then you see nearly headless Nick, and who's petrified. And then McGonagall sees him and is like, listen, it's out of my hands. We're going to take you to Dumbledore's office and up the cool staircase. Oh my god, this is the coolest place ever. I love that his password, too, is Sherbet Lemon. Like, this is... Oh, it's so good.
It's so amazing. I feel like Dumbledore is, like, a wannabe hippie. He's like, I'm this great, powerful wizard, but really, just, like, let me have some hot chocolate and some ice cream and leave me alone and I'll be great.
Oh, yeah. Well, and if Dumbledore is queer, too, it makes sense that he likes everything in his own style, right? He's like, I've got flair, right? I always wonder is, like, in this moment in the office, does Dumbledore know that this is a Horcrux? That this is the first Horcrux going on? Is he not there in his research yet? Is this the thing that spares his research into the 6th book? I believe that he must have an inkling, right?
Mm-hmm. I feel like he has some idea, but it hasn't fully clicked yet. And he must be like, okay, he must know that Voldemort can possibly return. but he's like not sure because there's weird stuff that goes on in the wizarding world all the time. So he's not sure if this is part of Voldemort or if this is something new or if it's just like some weird, you know, bogey hex that's happening.
Oh my god. If only the Chamber of Secrets was opened by a bogey hex. And so then Harry has like a heart-to-heart with the Sorting Hat, and he's like, hey, did you put me in the right house? Sorting Hat is like, maybe, I don't know. You know, like the Sorting Hat is so snarky, I feel like. Harry's like, no, you're wrong. I don't belong in Slytherin anyway. So it's like, Harry, then why did you ask if you already knew? Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And then poor Harry has like, honestly, probably the worst luck ever in this movie. And he's like admiring Fawkes, which is the coolest Phoenix ever. So cool. And then Fawkes just like goes into flames and dies right in front of him.
Which is so sad.
Yeah.
And poor Harry's just like, I didn't do it. It wasn't me. All this weird stuff happens around me, but I had nothing to do with this.
I know. And then Dumbledore's like, hey, it's okay. Like, look, he's right in the ashes, right? And I always laugh because Fawkes is like so beautiful as this like elder bird, right? And then there's like a baby. He looks like just like a baby penis. Like he's like, oh shit. Like, he looks so ugly. He was not a cute baby. So if you're not a cute baby, it's okay. You can always end up being like Fawkes. Fawkes's glow up is extreme.
It really is.
And so Hagrid then burst in and he's like, it's not Harry. I swear in front of the Ministry of Magic. And Dumbledore's like, yeah, I don't believe that Harry attacked anyone. And then Hagrid's like, oh, okay. I'll just be outside. Sorry. Which I love. It's such a great character thing.
I love how passionate Hagrid is. Like,
yes.
As scared as he is of a lot of things, he's just like, if I believe it, I will do anything in my power and stuff that's not in my power to make sure that everyone else believes it too. It's so admirable.
Well, Hagrid was also wrongly accused, as we'll find out in a little bit. So I also understand that he's coming here to be like, oh my god, I don't want what happened to me to happen to Harry, right? It's not fair, right? And so I don't understand why Dumbledore like asked Harry, because I don't think Harry even then tells him about the voices here. And I don't know if it's just because Harry doesn't trust Dumbledore fully yet or what's going on. But it's like, Harry, just tell him. He might be able to figure it out.
I feel like Harry is embarrassed because Hermione and Ron were like, you know, hearing voices, even in the wizarding world, that's a bad sign. And then he just had the whole, like, parcel mouth thing. And he's like, well, there's 2 strikes against me. If I get a third one, maybe they'll send me home and I'll have to be locked up at the Dursley's house for the rest of my life. I don't want that. So he's, like, just trying to, you know, fly under the radar so that no one tries to send him home. Yeah,
and it's also, this is like weirdly a mental illness stigma that I feel like is slightly being addressed, right? Of this like, am I crazy, right? And I'm too scared to tell anybody, which is like a very real thing. And it like, a lot of them start at like the age that he's at. So it was very powerful for her to write this, like, because I think this is like a struggle a lot of kids go with, like, do I lie, do I tell the truth? I recommend telling the truth because that is going to be, even if you're scared, that's the first step to like figuring it out for it to be more manageable.
Yes.
So then we're gonna do, Hermione is drugging cupcakes. She's 12, a minor, with the Polyjuice Potion.
Oh my gosh, like that scene hit me so hard. Not as a child. As a child, I thought it was hilarious. But as an adult, Hermione basically roofies Crabbe and Goyle. And I was like, as an adult, that is not okay.
I know! Yeah. I mean, it's almost vengeance because I know they were mean. So I, like, understand the, like, wave of feminism rage because she is right. She does not deserve to be bullied by them. But also, don't drug them. Don't get on that level. Don't do it. I don't even understand. The Polyjuice Potion looks so gross. I always am wondering, this is more the 4th book, but how did Barty Crouch Jr. do this every fucking day? Like, how did he do this? Like, it's so disgusting. And I love the, like, face bubble cool special effects that happen.
Yes.
The special effects team in this movie is really good. The same in the book, that their voices didn't change. Like, how is that even physically possible?
I think that their voices did change in the books. Because I remember, like, in the book, Harry and Ron came out of the bathroom stalls, and Harry, like, said something, and Ron was like, oh, sorry, excuse me, and Harry had to be like, Ron, it's me.
Oh, yeah, because Ron didn't know. I remember that. Yeah, it's weird that they didn't do that in the movie. It's kind of mean. I think they robbed the actors of Crabbe and Goyle for more money.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Definitely.
I love to. It's so crazy that I feel like there's so many quotable lines because I remember because Harry is Crabbe and he was like wearing glasses and Malfoy's like, why are you wearing glasses? Which they are so out of their heads on doing this like spy heist. Right? They've made so many mistakes already. But Malfoy goes to Crabbe and he's like, I didn't know you could read. And I feel like that was like the ultimate like fake diss and jokes when you were like roasting your friends. They'd be like, oh, I'm just reading this letter. And you'd be like, I didn't know you could read, right? And then they'd be like, ha ha, right? Like that was like the ultimate punked 12-year-old thing.
But I also feel like Malfoy actually was like, he was a total whiny brat, but I feel like he was a decent friend to Crabbe and Goyle because he didn't like, really make fun of him. He just did the like, oh, I didn't know you could read, and then like let it go instead of being like, oh, you're a Four Eyes and like all that.
Yeah. He was like, oh, that's your hobby? Cool. Oh, yeah. He didn't bully him at all. He was like, honestly, just like, oh, I'm learning something new about my friend. And then Ron gets so heated during this because Malfoy just like roasts his family. Like it is Comedy Central and Malfoy is on. Like he's just going for it. So, and it is kind of crazy that the Daily Prophet hasn't been reporting what's happening at Hogwarts considering how involved they end up getting in the later like books and movies. Malfoy is like, Dumbledore is the worst thing that happened to this place. And honestly, I will say, Malfoy might be semi-right. I don't know who would be good enough for to replace Dumbledore, unfortunately. But he's right. Dumbledore has made a lot of serious, questionable choices, for sure.
I feel like he makes a lot of questionable choices, but he's also like the only wizard who has ever had the same amount of power as Lord Voldemort. And he's also the only wizard who's like not afraid to say his name because he was the headmaster when Voldemort was at school. And so he knows him. And so I feel like having him as headmaster is essential to the storyline.
Oh, for sure.
Because he's the only one who really knows how to defeat Voldemort.
Yeah, they're basically building a child army, which is insane. And then poor Hermione, they come and find her after the Polyjuice Potion is wearing off so quickly. And she's a kitty, which makes Ron into furries now. And it's I felt so bad for her. But she's a very cute kitty for a weird cute.
She is. She looks really good.
And then we find later that the girls' bathroom is flooded because somebody threw something at Moaning Myrtle, and she's so good in this freaking scene because she explodes at Ron's, like, I guess ableist thing of like, but you're not corporeal, right? Like, oh, I love it. She deserves the award for this performance. It's so good.
She really did.
So then Harry finds a diary that talks back every, like, girl's dream, right? Every writer's dream. And then he's casually transported into a book at 12. And he sees Tom Riddle, who is very handsome. Obviously, this is Tom Riddle's memory, so maybe he's more ugly in real life, and he just remembers himself very handsomely. They're about to close Hogwarts, and I feel like that's why. I don't even know if Tom Riddle would have stopped, but he was like, oh, crap, if they close Hogwarts, I have to go back to the orphanage. I better blame somebody else. I don't want to lose my home. Like, and it's just crazy to me. Like, I can't believe that he, like, would orphan other children and ruin all of these lives when he was in orphanage, knowing what it was like, doing all of these things to, like, avoid going back. Yet he still was evil. Like, the way to not have empathy, dude. Like, it is terrible. And then he ends up blaming the whole Chamber of Secrets on Hagrid for the spider. And then one of my favorite things, I think it's so melodramatic and overdone, but it's when Harry goes, Hagrid! And he says it so long. Then after that, after he, like, gets back to the book, he's like, whoa. It's so great. What a 12-year-old reaction. Like, and then we get like a little clip, and the mandrakes, we've already talked about them before, but then in this scene they have acne, and it is so cute in a mood because they're like growing up, so they go through like the little stages because they're like little people. So cute. But then unfortunately Harry's bedroom has been ransacked and the diary is gone, so they should know, and I don't feel like they really mention it in the movies. I can't remember if they mention it in the books, but like it has to be a Gryffindor, right? Because they got into the dormitory.
Yes.
are so pissed because now Quidditch is also canceled, and people are, I mean, they're mad. And I guess this is why the NFL was brought back so quickly. Sports were in COVID. It was like, people do not like their sports canceled. I can't understand it. I'm more of a drama person, but oof. And then, unfortunately, Hermione is petrified. And I cannot believe that they are 12 and they, like, went and showed them their petrified friend. Like, I was like, I don't think you needed to do that. I'm glad that they informed her, but I think they could have just told them and not, like, why did they get visual proof?
See, it's also really interesting because these books are set, like, in the UK. And in the UK, children become adults legally, like, sooner than here in America.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I think it's at 17 they become adults.
Yeah.
And I know that's only like a year earlier, but it feels like they're trying to make their children grow up faster. So they're showing them very adult things. And honestly, like, Harry's been through some adult crap already. Like, he's been dealing with an abusive family his entire life. So I feel like seeing Hermione probably was not the most traumatic thing to ever happen.
Fortunately. I mean, it doesn't come up with the Dementors in the next one, so I guess not. But it is, like, that is kind of smart that I think it is good for adults to prepare children. And obviously they were there, and, like, now they're going to escort everybody to Hogwarts lessons. Hogwarts is going to be shut down. So Harry goes and is back at it again with the invisibility cloak. And they, like, spy, and they see that the Minister of Magic is taking Dumbledore in, and that he has to, like, step aside as headmaster. And then Lucius says something, and it's, like, such a good amount of foreshadowing, and I don't even know if they were doing it, but Lucius goes to Dumbledore, and he's like, you've lost your touch, which is crazy, because he ends up, like, losing his hand, right? I know that was, like, a reach, but it was, like, I was like, whoa! Yeah. And then Hagrid, like, walks himself into a trap because he goes, if you take Dumbledore away, there's gonna be killings. And it's like, and they're like, oh, you think so, Hagrid? When you were accused of being the one who killed in the past, right? So now, is that a confession, right? Like, oh, the system will get you.
I feel like that's what the minister was thinking, because he was like, you know, the last time this happened, you were here. Guess what's similar about this time? You're still here.
It's a smart theory. It's the wrong theory, right? I can see why he's thinking it, but he's still messed up. And then Dumbledore, I guess I can't even tell if he can see through the cloak or he just knows because he's so powerful, but he's like, hey, you know, I'm gonna go, but if you ask for help, you'll find it. And I'm like, that was so vague for 12-year-olds. I understand that he kind of has to be, but because he's, like, being taken away. And then Hagrid, I think, says to follow the spiders. Feed Fang. That was Hagrid's message to the empty room, because they apparently know they're there. They apparently suck at invisibility cloak. But the own Minister of Magic, which is probably a more powerful position than the headmaster, doesn't know. So that's great. And Ron is terrified of spiders. This is Ron's biggest trauma. And he's like, I love that line of, why couldn't we just follow the butterflies? It's so good. Yeah.
Which I totally feel. Like, who wants to follow a line of spiders into a creepy forbidden forest where
at night,
where who knows what is waiting for them? And I mean, they know that Hagrid already has, like, an affinity for dealing with creatures that no one should be dealing with.
The creature that it is this huge spider, Aragog. I mean, he's a big boy.
He's got some heft.
And he informs them that he's not the monster. The monster was born in the castle, and it came from a distant land in the pocket of a traveler. And he's like, yo, so you know, I don't harm Hagrid, but I cannot deny fresh meat. And Ron's like, can we panic now? And then, so creepily, the spider's like, goodbye, friends of Hagrid's. And then, what I want to know is, who is Aragog's lady friend that is birthing all these sons and daughters? Like, because there's a lot.
That's a very good question.
Where's his boo? Like, they definitely miss Hermione, but the car comes in and is like, I'll be Hermione, don't worry, I'm gonna get you out of this, sorry. But that would be so creepy in real life, like a Tesla pulls up in front of you and is like, hey, jump in. I mean, it would be great, but I would be a little scared.
Yes.
I'd be like, okay.
But also, like, that is so nice of that car, because the last time that they had the Ford Angela, they got it beat up by the Whomping Willow, and it goes off and lives in the Forbidden Forest by itself to avoid abuse, and then it realizes that these people who were the same people who got it, like, basically destroyed are in trouble. And it's like, okay, I guess I'll drive into the middle of this forest of, like, demon spiders and save you. And it was still getting beat up even more by these gigantic spiders.
We need a Pixar car story of this. The Pixar Harry Potter car story. This is a great, like, short film before it. I mean, this is the idea out you. This is ready. And then it's like, I mean, this is such an intense taxi too. Like, the spider grabs Ron around the neck. Like, it is scary. Thankfully, Harry spells him. And then Ron's line of, like, if Hagrid ever gets out of Azkaban, I'll kill him. Which is so... but I get it. Because that was so dangerous to, like, send them to. And then Harry figures it out. Because they see the piece of paper in Hermione's hand, that it's Hagrid was innocent. It's a basilisk. Because they all the victims, they saw the reflections, but they never looked it in the eye to die. Spiders flee before it. It's been using the pipes to get around, which I still don't understand because it's freaking huge, the basilisk. How huge are Hogwarts pipes? Maybe I just don't understand plumbing. But the girl that died 50 years ago died in a bathroom. It's Moaning Myrtle who saw the basilisk.
Which, it's amazing that I realize that no one really comes to visit her, but she's got to have heard something and have realized that it's similar to last time.
Oh, yeah.
And instead she's like, I'm gonna hang out in this toilet stall because no one loves me.
I mean, she's stuck in puberty, though, as a ghost. This is an awful time to be stuck as like a child forever. That's rough.
Yes.
That's a rough time. I would not want to be 12 forever. That's for sure. And they're going to tell, and then they catch that there's been, like, another attack, that a girl was taken. And Gilderoy's like, oh, I can do this. I can deal with the monster. I know all along. And then they're like, okay, then you do it.
I know, and he's all like, wait, what? You're not actually going to do that. And they're like, no, you know what? Do it.
Yeah. And I'm in the realization, though, of when it's Ginny Weasley that's been taken. Ooh, I still feel like, even thinking about it, I get, like, shivers down my spine. Like, that is literally the worst victim. It's like, it sucks about Hermione, but that is, Ginny's innocent, right? She's innocent in all this, or so we think. And so they go to Gilroy because they, like, want to help him because they figured it out because they're 12-year-old geniuses. And he's packing up and running away. How responsible. Like, and what a kid thing. Like, I feel like that happens so much in kids' lives that we don't realize, of, like, when you see adults, like, basically fleeing from their fear, right? Of basically people walking out on other people, and you're like, what are you doing? Like, be a good person. And Gilderoy confesses that, like, that he basically, was good at memory charms, and he needed to be because the books wouldn't have sold if people didn't think he did all these things.
Which is amazing because he's packing up to flee Hogwarts Castle. Like, how many obliviation charms is he gonna have to cast on people in order to make them forget that he was ever there and that he ran away? Because his books would not sell. I don't know what his plan was. Yeah. His books wouldn't sell anymore if he left without, like, causing anyone to lose their memory, because they'd all just take it home to their parents and be like, oh, yeah, my teacher ran away because he's a liar. Yeah. And honestly, Gilderoy should have just, as a book, written down his plans to steal people's memories, right? That's a good book. You didn't have to actually go do it. You could have just wrote that book about this evil guy that does that. Why did you do that? You didn't have to. Sometimes I think us writers, we struggle with, like, oh, we've got to actually go do the thing. And it's like, no, trust your imagination. It's enough. It will be enough. Don't do terrible things. But I love the fact that Ron's wand does save the day here is, like, very, very brilliant. It's like, you do need the broken wand for this all to work. And I love that Moaning Myrtle has a crush on Harry, because I clearly have a crush on Moaning Myrtle. And Harry asks how she died, and she is, like, so turned on about, like, she's such an emo person too. And she's like, oh, you want to know how I died? She's like, oh my gosh, this cute boy who's super popular, he's so into like, me. They made fun of my glasses. And then she was like, I don't know what happened because I was distraught. And so good. So good. And she was like, and then I heard them say a made-up language, and I unlocked the door to tell them to go away, and then I died. And it's so, such a great monologue. And she was like, but I did see a great pair of big yellow eyes
by that sink. She's like the perfect murder mystery character. Every murder mystery should have a Moaning Myrtle. Yes. So good. So then Harry speaks in parcel mouth and opens it, and Moaning Myrtle is like, well, if you die, you're welcome to share my toilet. Which is so great. I love her so much. And so they slide down this like giant slide of the sink, which honestly looks like fun, even though it looks also a little gross, but seems like fun. Just slide down.
Yeah, I feel like that should be a ride at Harry Potter Land. If they can have, like, a playground for kids, and it'll be, like, but, you know, it's
the
actually
bathroom.
For, like, us adults.
Yes.
They'll be, like, slide into the Chamber of Secrets.
Oh, that's a great ride. You gotta pitch that.
Perfect.
For sure. And so they're like, Harry goes, you know, any sign of movement, close your eyes. And then they see the giant snake skin, and they just like randomly guess. They're like, oh yeah, that's 60 feet long. But I mean, they got us this far, and they're geniuses, so they're probably right. But I love the like random fact of like, oh yeah, I can just look at the snake skin and I know that it's 70 feet. Right? Like,
that is very talented because I look at people and I don't know how long they are. I'm like,
yeah. I have no idea about heights. So I don't even know my own height sometimes. I'm like, I think I'm 5'5.5". I could have grown, I could have shrunk.
See,
it beats me. What is
according
size?
to everyone, I'm 5'10", but according to Universal Studios, I'm 5'9 3/4.
Oh,
the audacity. But
yeah, rude.
So like I kind of base it off of that. If people are taller than me, they're about 6 feet. If they're shorter than me, they're not 6 feet. So, like, them knowing that the snake was 60 feet, I'm like, okay, I can't even measure myself correctly, apparently. So...
yeah, I have no idea even the difference between an inch and a centimeter, so... But Gilroy grabs Ron's crappy wand, and he's like, oh, here's where it's gonna go down, right? I bested these 12-year-olds because I'm a psychopath. And he's like, you guys are gonna tragically lose your minds at the sight of your body. I love when evil villains, like, explain what they're going to do to their victims. Like, they love to hear themselves talk, right?
Yeah.
But instead of making it lose their memories, it just makes all the stuff fall down, and Gilroy Lockhart lose the memories, and he automatically becomes like a child, and he asks if Harry and Ron live here, and it just brings me to this moment that I feel like was wasted and needed to be in the fourth film, even though I understand because the fourth film was so jam-packed. That scene in the hospital with him and Neville and Neville's parents in the fourth book. Do you remember it? Ugh.
Yes, I do. That was such a good scene, and they just completely did away with it, which I understand because the books are so jam-packed, they can't possibly fit everything in. But it just made me so sad that they didn't bring that actor back to portray that.
Oh, I know. Great scene for Neville. It's like, that's the whole reason he falls in love with Neville. And when his mom gives him like the candy wrapper, it's so heartbreaking.
Well, and it's so important because in the seventh book, they reference that and explain that Harry and Neville were born on the same day, which is a very important fact.
Absolutely, yeah.
That Voldemort just kind of blew past.
Yeah, it's not even in, like, the extended version or anything either, I don't think. Like, such a wasted scene. Anyway, so Jenny is then cold as ice, and Harry's, like, trying to wake her up, and Tom Riddle appears suddenly, and Harry's, like, not even baffled by that at all. He's just like, oh yeah, Tom, who should be older if this was 50 years ago. Isn't phased at all.
Yeah.
And Harry's like, come on, you gotta help me, you know, like, the basilisk is coming. And he's like, oh, don't worry, it won't come until it's called, right? It's so freaking creepy. And he's like, you know, as Jenny grows weaker, I grow stronger. And he explains that Jenny opened the Chamber of Secrets. It's like, oof, like, what a betrayal, ow, like, our innocent Jenny opened it, right? Like, I don't even feel like that even hits me now about how big that was for it to be like a Gryffindor and a friend of, like, Harry's, right? Like a family member. Like, wow. And it's obviously not her fault because Tom Riddle told her to. And then he had, like, preserved himself in the diary, but he, like, as soon as Harry had grabbed his diary, he was like, I knew I had to meet you, like, face to face. It's so creepy. This whole, like, exchange is, like, just chills your skin, right? And he's like, don't worry. He's like, everybody who petrified is going to be all right. Killing mudbloods doesn't even matter. He's like, my new target has been you. And he's like, how did you escape me with nothing but a scar? And Harry's like, what the heck? This was like after your time. Why do you care, Creepazoid, right? And then he's like, no, Voldemort is my past, present, and future. And then when he does the iconic rearrange the name thing, which has become a hilarious meme as well. But this, like, I remember how much this messed up with me as a child, right? When he does the thing. It's the worst graphics in the film, but it is iconic as heck.
Yes. But I was just like, oh my gosh, like, how did you rearrange those letters to get Voldemort? Like, how is that what you landed on?
Anagrams, man. Like, the crazy. And he's like, I'm the heir of Slytherin. He's like, I wasn't going to keep my filthy muggle father's name. And Harry's like, what are you talking about? You're not the greatest wizard. Albus Dumbledore is. And Voldemort's like, he's been driven out by my mere memory. Oh, he's such a piece of crap in this. He's so gross. And then Harry is like, he's never going to be gone as long as those are loyal. But he somehow forgets that message in the 6th book when he's mourning Dumbledore. Grief affects everything. And so then, because Fawkes hears this cry, he comes back, and Harry tries to, like, after trying to avoid this basilisk attack, tries to, like, talk Parselmouth to the basilisk. But Tom is like, it only listens to me. And this is such a scary snake. This snake, honestly, it's terrifying. It's huge in the face.
It really is. It's enormous. Yeah. And just the idea of having to fight this creature that doesn't listen to you, even though you speak the same language, and you can't look at it, because if you make eye contact with it, you'll die.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, and then thank God Fawkes takes care of that, because he just blinds the heck out of the snake. It's so, graphic. But Tom is, like, not phased, because, like, he could still hear you and smell you, obviously. Sniff, sniff. I can imagine, like, the little basilisk, the giant scary creature, like, sniffing the air delicately. Trying to sniff out Harry Potter. Oh, and then there's, like, a shot, too, where I think he's, like, running with all the rats underneath the sewer. Like, this guy is 12. Like, it's insane. This battle is seriously insane, and it gets me so excited. And so the basilisk, like, there's like kind of like a fake jump moment, which I think was cool, because I love those, like, I always refer to it as American Horror Story 3's thing of, like, surprise bitch, I bet you thought you saw the last of me, right? Which I think is like the basilisk move here, right? It is that, like, Emma Roberts line. And then he ends up getting the sword of Godric Gryffindor. Again, that snake's mouth, it's so gross. It's so gross. And it gets him, really, unfortunately, when he gets the basilisk, he gets it with the sword, but it poisons him with its tusk. I mean, the tusk! It has freaking tusks, this thing! But Voldemort's pet is dead, but unfortunately, venom comes quickly, and it's just crazy, man, the damage that a book can do, right? Like, it is insane. Mm-hmm. And then Harry, though, takes that kind of hint that Tom is, like, weird about the book, and then I don't even know how he does this. It's, like, kind of genius, because I think that I would have just, like, sat there and died, right? Like, I would have not been like, what can I do? I'm gonna stab the book with this thing, right? I don't think I would have ever been that smart as a 12-year-old.
I would have tried to stab, like, Tom Riddle with it.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And that wouldn't have worked. And then you still, and you're, like, weak too to get up that energy to just stab. Yeah. Or, it's like, insane.
When I was reading it, my first thought, because, like, Tom was like, as she grows weaker, I grow stronger. I was like, well, he's going to have to stab Ginny, and this is going to be really messed up. But if he kills Ginny, then, like, Tom Riddle can't get any more power from her.
Yeah. Yeah, that's even a worse plot twist. It hurts. Oh my goodness. And another reality where that happened. Oof. And then poor Jenny wakes up finally when this is all over, and she's like, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. It wasn't me. Which is like, she's like basically been possessed. Like the damage that has on like an 11-year-old girl. Her crush, Harry Potter, is going to die in front of her for what she knows. But then, thank God, Fawkes comes in, cries on him. I freaking love Fawkes so much.
He's so great.
And the music that plays with Fawkes playing, I used to listen to it all the time. It is sincerely beautiful. Mm-hmm. Oh, and that sad line that he says before Fawkes heals him of like, you were brilliant, Fawkes. I just wasn't quick enough. It's like so, like, Harry, don't even take the blame. You're dying.
Right? I love how he does that, though. Like, that's very mature of him. How he's not like, how dare you not come before? Like, where were you? You would have known that I needed help. He's like, I'm sorry. You were great.
Yeah, he's so kind. He really is a kind boy, Mr. Harry Potter. I always think this line that he says to Jenny where he goes, "It's over. It's just a memory." It is so cheesy. It is so cheesy. But I get it. And you can't not, right? You can't not hit that cheese when you got it. So they broke a dozen school rules. They could get expelled, but they don't. Yet again, they get special awards for services to the school. Psych, they're never, Gryffindor wins the House Cup every time. They're invincible. And so then I think Errol was having a hard time getting the papers to Azkaban to get the Gameskeeper Hagrid back. So that's hilarious too. It's kind of brushed over in the movie, but I'm like, wow, how frustrating. The prison system is already probably very frustrating, and yet here we have an owl too that's
yeah, well, I mean, they have freaking Dementors protecting Azkaban, so I'm like, those poor owls that had to fly there.
I wonder if it affects owls. Maybe they're immune. I wonder if it's only a people thing, that's their only effect. Maybe. That's another good Dementor question. But Dumbledore explains, now that he is back, he explains that only real loyalty calls Fox. And then they do very, very, very briefly, not even anything close to what we need, I feel touch on the similarities between Voldemort and Harry Potter. And I don't even know if she had Horcruxes planned out at this time, right? Probably didn't, because that's mainly what the focus of the last two books are.
She probably didn't, because she was working on Harry Potter, but in between each Harry Potter book, she was also working on a different children's story.
Oh, wow. What children's story do you know?
It's called the Ichabod, I believe. The Ichabod.
Oh.
That's what it is. And it's actually released, and it's super cute.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, she was working on that just in between each Harry Potter.
Wow. She was doing it all, man. I love this line. Don't even get psychoanalyzed. Don't pay for therapy. Just always remember Dumbledore's line of, it's not our abilities, but it's our choices who make us who we are, right? That line is so good. It's such a good thing. Free therapy advice, that's something you gotta remember more. I definitely have to remember it more. And then we figure out that the Malfoys are Dobby's masters, and they talk to Lucius Malfoy and they're like, several of the people who signed the petition for Dumbledore to go were under the impression that you would curse their family if they didn't agree with you, so this makes it invalid, you know what I mean? Because that was really messed up.
Yeah. I love how Lucius Malfoy is so offended. He's like, well, who told you that? And they're like, we're not going to release names. And he's just like, but who? Because I would never, but who? Give me specifics.
Oh my goodness, he's so terrible. And then he goes always he's like, oh, well, I guess Harry Potter will always be around to save the day. And it's kind of true, though. It's kind of the summary of these books. But Harry has the suspicion, and I guess it has to be true, right? Is how he got the diary is that Lucius slipped it to Jenny in Diagon Alley. Yeah, right?
He did. So, the movie actually does a really good job of illustrating that without harping on it. In that scene where they're in Flourish and Bots and they're getting their school books and everything, when Lucius comes up and is insulting the Weasleys, he picks up Ginny's book and he's like, oh, it's a secondhand copy. And when he picks it up, you see there's only one book in the cauldron, but when he puts it back, there's two books.
Whoa! Oh my goodness! It got me. I didn't see it. But then there's my favorite moment ever. One of my favorite moments. I used to make this joke all the time. Harry gives a sock in the diary because the diary gets handed over to Dobby and there's a sock in it. It's my favorite punked moment of Harry Potter, right? This is the best Harry Potter, trick. And that the Malfoys have given Dobby a sock. Dobby is free and he steps out and he protects Harry Potter. It's he gets freed and he's honestly freed of his abusive mindset. I was talking about how Dobby steps out in front of Harry and saves Harry Potter in a good way this time as soon as he's freed. It's he's not only freed physically, he's also freed from his emotional abuse and he can think clearly, right?
Yes. And that is such a good way to put it, that when you're free from your physical and emotional abuse, if you're in a bad relationship, get out, because you're so much more powerful when you're out
Absolutely.
of it.
And you can help so much more people too, and you'll be able to make so much more friends. I was in like an abusive situation, and I can tell like tenfold the more I like stopped putting up with the abuse, in my life changed in all sorts of ways. Yeah. But it's very hard. Like, the effects are long lasting. We see it through the Harry Potter ones. But I love when he goes to Dobby and he's like, promise me you'll never try to save my life again. And Dobby breaks that promise. He breaks it.
And that is so heartbreaking when he does break it.
Yes.
Like, it makes me cry.
Oh, I
but
know.
It was also so necessary.
It was, but it's a brilliant death. Long live Dobby. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And then I always cry when Hermione is back, but I die laughing when Ron tries to handshake. Like, they won't hug. He like gives her a handshake. It's so awkward and weird.
I feel like Ron is like just starting to catch feelings for her, and he's realizing that, and he's like, "Oh wait, no,
I don't want her to know. Yeah, I don't want to ruin our friendship, so I'm just gonna handshake my friend." I feel like a handshake could ruin a friendship like that. Like, why don't you just hug me?
Yeah.
And I always wondered. So they canceled the exams for this year. So like, do the 7 years? Do they automatically pass? Do the 5th years taking their owls? Do they pass? What happened here?
That's a very good question. I feel like because it was a super traumatic year, they would have just automatically passed. Like, I know when I was in college, they did it on a case-by-case basis. But, like, if you had a roommate who passed away in the middle of a semester, you automatically got A's for every class you were in for the semester.
That's insane.
Yeah, so I feel like they would have done something like that because, like, it was a very traumatic thing and, like, the kids couldn't really leave. Like, it wasn't up to them.
Yeah.
So I feel like they would have just passed. Which, like, what a year to be a 7th year.
Right? Yeah, it's lucky. I can understand Hermione's disappointment, though, of, like, studying all this time and then... Just, by the way, all the time that you were wasted studying instead of, like, exploring these amazing magical grounds didn't matter this year. So, like, you know what I mean? All the time when you were traumatic and you were still trying to do your paper didn't matter. Wasted. So you passed, though, which sucks. But, yeah, I think... Honestly, during this talk, you made me love this movie more. Because I wrote at the end of this that I thought that this movie was weaker than the first. But I think in movie-wise it is. Story-wise, it's obviously stronger. What do you think?
I think it is, too. So, like, in the first book, I feel like the first book is very much a children's book. Where it's just, like, love and magic and friendship conquer all. And then in the second book, they get more into, like, the wizard lore. And I feel like they did a fairly decent job of portraying that in the movie, where they were like, hey, this book actually has deeper themes. In this story, we deal with racism, we deal with classism, we deal with abuse, like physical and mental and emotional. We deal with the feeling of being trapped. We deal with, like, scary situations that most children's books don't deal with. So I feel like this story in the second book and second movie, it kind of got screwed over a little bit because it was the segue story from the first book, which was a children's book, into more adult themed material.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel like this book is misplaced. Like, almost that he should have had Sirius first, then this one, then the Goblet of Fire, right? Then the Azkaban, the Order of Phoenix, then the Half-Blood Prince, right? I almost feel like this is like a Horcrux that just came just too soon to the idea, right? And if it was more set in the middle of the story, that we would have gotten it more. And not that much has to change. I guess it's more impressive that he's 12 and doing this. Because I wasn't doing this at 12.
Yeah. Oh, definitely not. So it was interesting because, like, when I started reading these books, I think I was 8 years old when I started reading them. And so I was like, oh, wow, he's 11. That's so old. And then I turned 11 and I was like, I'm still a kid. Like, I don't know what Harry Potter was doing, but I'm still a child.
Yeah. Oh, that's my favorite thing in all of these kids' movies when they're like, I'm 13. I'm practically an adult. Right? I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, and I remember being 13 and believing that, right? Like, it is.
Yes.
Yeah. Teenage years are hard. Yeah, it's like
They
a hard,
really
because
are.
it's like, that is the thing of like, you got to grow up, and it's tough to grow up.
Yeah, and I think that these books actually do a really good job with dealing how tough it is to like grow up and how to embrace change, because there's something new and different in every book, and every book like progresses. Every book gets like a little bit thicker than the one that was before it, because they're dealing with so much stuff that regular stories don't deal with. And
So true.
so I actually heard that J.K. Rowling intended to write and release one book a year so that the children who started reading Harry Potter at a young age could grow up with Harry Potter. And I just love that idea. I love that he gets a little bit more mature and he deals with a more adult theme each book.
Yeah.
I love that she put that much thought into it. I know that it actually took her a little bit longer than the 7 years that she had planned. It took her 10 years to get them all out.
Yeah.
But I still feel like it was kind of perfect in the timing.
That was my boyfriend hates Harry Potter, but his argument was like, he didn't grow up with it, is what he was saying. He was like, I miss that, like, that's like kind of the magic of Harry Potter, is that we grew up with him and how like special. And then even now, anybody can grow up with him at any time, right? You can raise your kids to where they too can grow up with Harry Potter if you really wanted to, and like they're like appropriate for children, and they're definitely things to talk about. What was your favorite book and movie?
Honestly, my favorite book was the first one. I love magic and I love happy endings, and I feel like the first one is probably, I want to say it's the only one that can stand on its own. The rest are clearly part of a series, and while you don't need to read them all, you can get like a general idea from each one, but they don't feel complete as stories by themselves.
Yeah. Well, because also she had the most time for the first one, because she was trying to sell that one for years. So, and I'm like in the process of trying to like sell my book right now, and it's a lot of like, you send it out, you don't like it, and then you look and you're like, what can I rewrite to make stronger, right? And so you have so much time with your very first piece.
Yes.
That it just ends up sometimes, I think, being really complete, because you've had so much time with it, you know? It's like, you put the most time raising it. Meanwhile, the other one, she had to kind of like kick out of the nest sooner, because you start to get on like a deadline. So yeah, it was so great to have you on this podcast. Thank you so much for showing. Is there anything you would like to plug, or of your stuff, or something you're doing, or things you care about?
I'm working on a TV show right now, but it's not released yet, so nope, I think I'm good.
Yeah, okay, cool. Well, good luck with your TV show.
Thank you so much. Good luck with your book.
Thank you so much. Oh my god, Sarah was the best guest I could have ever had for the second movie. So thank you so much, Sarah, for coming and talking. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I'm always looking for guests, so please feel free to hit me up on the links below. Right now, this podcast makes $0.00, and I would very much like it to be a company that makes some money so that I can pay my guests. So if you can please subscribe, followers help in terms of me doing sponsorships and brands. That will kind of give money. Sorry, there'll be a commercial break, so enjoy these ones and get all your friends to listen to it while there is no commercial breaks. Yes, I appreciate all of you guys for listening and all of your support. I hope that it will only grow. I would love for this to reach as many people as possible, because I feel like what we're talking about matters. And yeah, I want all of these people to be exposed to all the wonderful artists that I know in my life, and they have helped me through so much, and I love meeting new people. So please, all my links are below on how to support me. I love and appreciate you so much, and be safe out there. And I can't wait to see you on the next episode of Mouthy.